I'd like to thank the organizers, especially Morven and Jerry, to invite myself to do this very difficult presentations that combining sustainability with nutrition. No, I try my best, so let's see if I achieve the expectation of such an incredible audience here. So I divide my presentation in a little introduction and talk a little bit when we talk about sustainability of the environment, complexity, so got the food demand, knowledge and trends, sustainable food production, and I will give some examples of conservation agriculture, sustainable intensification, agrobiodiversity, and biofortification. And then I will point out some areas that I think it will be interesting to discuss if this pillar will be going to be a new pillar inside ILSI. So historically, maximizing the nutrient output of a farming system for a culturally acceptable and balanced diet has never been the objective of agriculture. Rather, the objective has been to maximize production while minimize the costs. And I think this is changing now, but pretty much that was maybe the thing in the past. So when you talk about sustainability, you talk about regional, you talk about environment, you talk about local, and it's impossible to talk about sustainability without thinking only globally. You have to go on the regions. And in this case, for example, in Brazil, we have such a diversity in terms of the Amazon forest, the biomes that you have, and the arid part of Brazil, and the Cerrado part of Brazil, where we have the most grain production and agriculture production. So each sustainability for each of those biomes has to be adapted to those. So we still a problem of food quantity and food quality. Still we have some data that we're going to be 9 billion people, so we still need quantity. Obviously we need quality. So this is the OECD expectation for 2020, and it seems that we are not going to achieve these expectations. The percentage, even Brazil, that has increased a lot the food production, maybe in 2020 we're not going to reach 40% from the 2010 baseline. So the other thing that is very important when you're talking agriculture, the knowledge is not, the funds and the knowledge are not in the agricultural area. You see the small dot there with a red circle there, and this is the amount of knowledge in agriculture. You see the molecular and cell biology, how much. So we really depend on the knowledge developed by the other areas. Agriculture is really dependable of the knowledge of other areas. And Brazil has a good example of to become a secure country. And if you look this incredible curves from 1975 to 2009, this is the food basket on real prices, the decrease that we have here. So, and that decrease, also there is many causes. So obviously we produce much more. Research actually really play an incredible role on this. But I'm sure that now the Brazilian population has much more access to food with low prices. So, so it's important, the quality and the quantity, like I said. Well, that trend of food prices not only inside of Brazil. If you think about the 4 major commodities, soybean, rice, corn, and wheat, since 1913. So you can see a sharp decrease on prices, and especially on rice. And you can see the spikes that we have when we have wars, and when you have the crisis here, that we increase food. And it's very important to say that we have very low stocks of those commodities today. So that's a big cause of this fluctuation price that we are seeing recently. So the food security is really in a very thin equilibrium. For example, if Brazil loses, there is a drought right now there, not too bad, but it is too bad. If for some reason in the U.S. there is a drought, I'm sure that some people is going to be having lacking of food in the world. It's very, very thin, the equilibrium of this amount of food produced. So pathways to sustainable agriculture. So when you talk with food and sustainability, natural resources must be seen at the basis of a revolution in the frontier of science, as well as a unique opportunity to build harmony between development, environment, conservation, and nutrition security. And today, agriculture is a source of many other things besides food. People talk a lot about fuel, but there is many other things today that agriculture provide. Environmental services, this is one thing that is growing pretty much. So that's such a complex thing. And I know that this institute has to be very focused as far as I could understand. So we have to get some of those areas in order for to be tackled by the ILSI instead of getting everything. But it must realize how complex it is, the system. So I choose some of the points that I think we have to reflect a little bit. Soil fertility and quality and water requirements. Soil fertility is a complex, I've heard of a lot of chemical here, and nutrition, chemicals, but the soil baby is more complex than any other thing that we have talked here. The soil chemical, physical, and biological process. And one of the problems that we have in the world today is the soil degradation. And if you have a degraded soil with no nutrients, you're not going to produce something that has to have the micronutrients, has to have the other elements that we have. So, and this is a key thing. Very few people is paying attention to that. Water is obvious. No, you need water for direct food production. And the water pollution with high fertilizer and pesticides and sewage is incredible. This is something that we have the previous talk here about talking about the fishing raising in Asia. So how is the water became really a problem. So those are the key points that you have to think when you talk about agriculture and sustainability. I'm going to give some examples. So here, Brazil, US, Argentina, Canada, and this is a kind of an old practice. This is no-till practice. We have now around 40 million hectares in Brazil that are doing like this, and is very interesting because you don't move the soil, you keep the fertility. Actually, in the tropical soil, in many cases, you increase the fertility, even organic matter. That is very difficult to increase. You increase the organic matter. And then, and people most of the time think that that technology is on apply on big farmers, and no, can be applied for small farmers, small scale agriculture without any problem. The other thing that we have to think is the intensification. So we're not going to have more land in earth to feed everybody. So we're going to have to use the land more, with more intensification. Obviously, the sustainable intensification. So you can use the same area with different crops. For example, integration, agriculture, animal production, and forest. So this is one system that we we actually is getting really popular in the farmers in Brazil. So this is upland rice with trees, and then you have corn with trees and beef cattle, and then you circle this. So you can have more than 90 different technologies that you can make whatever location you are. So, and in Brazil, you have 70 million hectares of degraded pasture. So that can be used with this system, produce meat, grains, and wood. So it's very important to intensify, but it's very important to intensify with sustainability, obviously. And this can also promote the CO2, to keep the CO2 in the soils. So, and the numbers are amazing. So we have measured this, and the numbers are really incredible. So the other thing is, you have to define areas for each agricultural activity based on the criteria of sustainability. So obviously, we are passing a climate change. We have to think about this. We really are passing it. So we're gonna have to get a strong effort on adaptation of all the crops that we grew. Even the ones that in California here, California is passing now are really incredible. Even the nuts, even the fruits. So there is today many geoprocessing technologies that are able to put the agriculture on the territory. And the other thing that most of the people don't realize, that agriculture is not fixed on territory. It's change, change for the market, change for many other reasons. For example, coffee in Brazil was grown in the south. And now most of the coffee is in the Cerrado region. And I can give many examples of this. And who knows, with the climate change, we're going to have maybe sugarcane in Canada. Well, nobody really knows. So the other thing that is, I think is a very important area is the agrobiodiversity. The role of agrobiodiversity in improving dietary quality and dietary diversity. So obviously, I put the pre-breeding programs that I'm going to talk about biofortification. But if you think in tropical areas, how many crops you have that is completely unexplored. They were talking about carotenoids here, and there is flavonoids. So we have an acai. A lot of you guys have probably get acai is a coconut from the Amazon. So and like those, there is many we don't know very well how to explore those, and that's another area. And so with the new approach for designing genotypes and no-optimum conditions and associated with the anticipated environments like climate change I was talking about, the precise genotyping, and so fertilizer, this is another thing. So plants are very bad in taking up fertilizer from the soil. Corn is the most efficient one and take at most 60% of the nitrogen that you apply. The other things you lose. So very few work in terms of getting plants to be more efficient in absorbing nutrients. But maybe with this new technology, we'll be able to do it. So in the end, designing genotypes for specific nutrition attributes. I think plant breeders have paid very little attention to nutrition in plant breeding. We have paid attention for diseases, have paid attention for increasing yield, but we have paid attention very little in all the crops for the nutritional attributes. So I will give some examples of this biofortification work in Brazil. You see my title of the presentation is integration. So I start to integrate when I'm an agronomist and a plant breeder, and Marília Nucci is a food science person. So we have done this presentation together, integrating what we think we have to be integrated. So we developed biofort crops, and evaluating their acceptability by target groups. bred some provitamins and varieties of sweet potato, cassava, maize, and to breed for iron and zinc in beans and cowpea beans and maize, and a lot of more other objectives in packaging, in evaluate the potential of utilization of those fortified foods in the lunch programs in many states of Brazil. And there is a very interesting way to communicate, because a lot of things that I heard here too is there is a problem of communicate to the people, what the benefits those things might have. The breeding targets of this program were, in terms, for example, iron in beans, 44 ppm above the baseline of each of beans. This is a program that's not only for Brazil, it's for the whole South America. There is a CGIAR system involved and others involved on this. And there is many, so, and then there's iron and zinc for beans, beta-carotene for cassava. So cassava, you have a white cassava, but you can have a very, very yellow cassava. That's a lot of beta-carotene. And sweet potato. So most Brazilians like the sweet potato that is white, but there is a sweet potato that is really rich in beta-carotene. So, and then we release many cultivars of bean, cowpea, cassava in Brazil, So like this potato, like this cassava, that is yellow cassava. And those materials, they have very good agronomic performance, and they have been using. So there were 30 demonstration units over Brazil, and many field days, and small farmers and big farmers are growing that. And there was all the results and the blogs and things, and so there is a campaign. And the interesting thing is some areas, some counties, they produce those foods, and the government buy this special food and provide to the public schools. So it is very interesting, the results. So now I'm just going to list some of the key areas of research that I think we should pay attention in that integration. So in production systems, food characterization, especially from tropical regions, aimed at the identification of food stocks rich on target compounds. Management practices which favor production of target compounds and decrease nutritional and allergenic factors. Post-harvest and storage, another area. Harvest and storage technology that preserve the content of quality target compounds. The omic science, food improvement which has content and quality traits associated with target compounds, gene discovery and expression from plants, animals, micronutrients associated to health effects. Pre-breeding and breeding programs, genetic improvement to develop materials containing traits with positive effect on nutrition and health, like the biofortification that I just given an example. Characterization of genetic resources to identify source of mineral, vitamins, bioactive compounds, proteins, and fibers, especially on the tropical biodiversity. Processing, developing strategies for food biofortification, and develop processes and specific products which promote content and quality of target compounds. In vivo studies of nutrition and health and in vivo nutritional impact. Develop methods of application to evaluate bioaccessibility, bioavailability on in vitro of a target compounds. Preclinical and clinical evaluations for measuring nutrition benefits and functional properties of food on health. Socio-economic studies, evaluation of social and economic impacts of deficiency of mineral, vitamins, and proteins. Economic viability of production and commercialization of ingredients and products of prebiotics, probiotics, vitamins, minerals, proteins, and bioactive compounds for food industry. Market studies on food consumer preference for food and nutritional education. Market study for differentiating ingredients and products on nutritional and functional quality for food industry and consumers, and nutrition information on benefit and risk to health. So impact of the integration, improvement of efficiency of breeding programs and biotechnological approach to develop better source of food, integration of agronomical science with food science, loss reduction using residues and co-products for food uses, enhancement of a relationship between food chains inside the farm and the agro-industry, enhancement of a strategy for increasing the population awareness for consumption of food with better nutritional and functional effects on health, contribution to prevention of chronic and non-transmissible disease, and contribution to reduction, expanding public health programs, and better quality of life. Thank you.
So the fourth thematic area, sustainable agriculture and nutrition security, unlike the preceding three thematic areas, isn't an area that has the same depth of experience within the history of ILSI's activities. So in some ways, this is both a blessing and a curse, but the blessing is what we're going to be focusing on, the opportunities with a somewhat blank slate to be able to move forward under the one ILSI approach. I want to first of all acknowledge my co-lead, Mariela Berezovsky, the Executive Director of ILSI Brazil. We are both co-leading this initiative. So much like the other presenters from ILSI who have talked about the thematic areas, we started by collecting information largely from activity reports and trying to be able to identify which ILSI branches have engaged in activities related to sustainable agriculture and nutrition security. Approximately half of ILSI's branches have undertaken at least some activities in this area, and for 2013, slightly over half of the branches identified emerging issues that we very subjectively would have put under the umbrella of sustainable ag nutrition security. So we tried to organize these interventions and collect them and try to identify sub-themes, which we were able to do. We took all of this information to the Friday branch meeting and met with colleagues from around the world, both branch staff as well as representatives from boards, et cetera. And we shared this information, tried to identify some other areas that we should be including. And so that discussion was very, very helpful. One of the things that is apparent is there have been a lot of one-off activities, but it was hard to identify significant programs themselves in this space. But coming out of Friday, we decided that what would be really helpful is a briefing note to establish context for sustainable ag and nutrition security, both sort of outside and inside ILSI, and that this would be an opportunity to be able to better engage and inform at the branch level, participants in activities, and also outside of the ILSI family as well. We also recognize that ILSI, while global, is a small organization in terms of numbers. There's strength in those small numbers. We're very efficient, we're very effective, but we also have to be realistic, particularly in sustainable ag and nutrition security, because we don't have that embedded history in ILSI. So one of the things we agreed to do was that the branches would try to identify in their country or in their region significant actors who are already working in this space and try to identify opportunities for nearer term interventions where ILSI could actually provide a supporting role. So we were not looking to lead necessarily, but at least try to engage with some of the organizations, some of the institutions that have really a significant presence already. Ultimately, our aspiration is to be able to develop a new program, recognizing that we don't have resources allocated to this already, but to develop a new program and take that program forward, both by building capacity inside ILSI. So the idea is, as a collective under the one ILSI approach, identify a topic where we would like to move forward with the program, to develop that program, seek funding for that program, implement the program, and then measure impact. And by doing so, it would be an opportunity to, within the ILSI family, also build capacity, particularly in those branches who may have less experience in actually going through this kind of exercise. So the next step was to take all of the information that we gained from our very helpful discussions on Friday, and this morning we convened a group of thought leaders from academia, from government, and from the private sector, people who really are leaders in sustainable agriculture and nutrition security, and Pedro was one of those. As Pedro pointed out in his presentation, sustainability in agriculture and in food security is inherently very, very complex. And again, within the ILSI family, we've heard this from the previous speakers, we need to be very focused, very strategic in where we actually want to be able to engage so that we can actually have some impact. It was identified this morning, and this is not news to you, again, it's already been spoken about, that ILSI's strengths are in convening very, very high-quality, dedicated scientists from the three families of the tripartite unit, and also our ability to engage effectively with the private sector and to have that private sector involvement in the work that we do. So that would be the foundation for being able to move forward. The discussions were very rich. We had a lot of discussions about coming at this from an agricultural productivity perspective and coming at it from the other direction with the consumption perspective. And during the course of these discussions, the evolution of ideas, et cetera, we really started to focus in on sustainable nutrition security as being an area of potentially somewhat untapped potential for ILSI. There are an awful lot of activities, there are a lot of actors, there's a lot of engagement in sustainable agriculture. But the consensus from this morning was that there's less of a presence in sustainable nutrition security. And there was even a suggestion that we revisit the title of this thematic area with that in mind. So in terms of next steps coming out of our discussions both on Friday and this morning, we have a small group of authors who are going to help prepare that briefing note. And in combination with a white paper on nutrition security that's being developed under the umbrella of SIMSANS, one of the Research Foundation centers, but the white paper itself transcends modeling. It's much, much bigger than that. That those two pieces, the discussions that we've already had, can help frame a conference that we'd like to move forward with on sustainable nutrition security systems. And that conference in and of itself would be able to once again help us better focus on where ILSI really should be and could be in a very effective player in this space. So thank you very much.